Yeah, and I think the timeline also, because I think there's some truth to what Deshaun says, where the Browns were never really out, but they felt like they had an arbitrary deadline. I think they went down to this whole thing, right? And I think at first they were like, I don't know about Cleveland. Maybe I want to go back home, or maybe I want to go back to Carolina, right, where he played college football. And maybe that's where he was originally thinking, the original process. But then somebody was like, hey, I know you want to go back to what's familiar, right? Home, Carolina, especially knowing what these next few years publicly are going to be for you. But maybe consider the ideal that the best roster could be what's best for you. And that was clearly the Cleveland Browns. And I think that argument got more and more compelling. I know people think it was only the money that Deshaun Watson got is why he's here. I think the money would have been offered in Atlanta and probably in Carolina. Even yes. Arthur Blank has even said on the record, he's just mad that he didn't get the chance to match it. When you don't get the chance to match it, that means that if all the money was equal, I wasn't going to you, right? So you weren't really going to be in there. So I think this roster and the ability to win games and, the kinship that he felt like with the coaching staff really is what brought him over here. It'll be interesting to see how all of this works out. But yeah, the whole Watson situation, I mean, like, it's still an ongoing thing. I mean, we're days away from training camp. We have no idea what his status is for the season.
We know nothing. We know the exact same amount that we learned when he first got here. And I will throw this in on top of it just as a little nugget. I think that he realized, okay, where can you rehabilitate your career the fastest with a roster, and where can you rehabilitate your image faster? If you win a Super Bowl in Cleveland, Ohio, there is 75% of the population that will forget where you were born at. At that point in time, you brought home. Think about LeBron James. At one point in time, now LeBron, don't get it twisted. He had none of this baggage, none of this. Mm-hmm. He just chose to go play for another team, right? But when he came back and won a championship here in Cleveland, I felt like that was almost worth two rings right there, because he came back and he made a solid what was good. If you can win in Cleveland and be very successful, a lot of people will forget what the allegations were. And at the end of the day, we'll still figure out what's going to happen with that. But we look at it moving forward on the football field. I think one of the things that the Browns will do, and I think what they better do, is turn the ball and hand the ball to 24.
Yeah, that's also like that's one of the things I want to touch on, right? Because like when before they traded Baker, the big hysteria was, the Browns, man, if they don't want to go 4-13, they got to get Baker to come out here. And look, I don't know if Baker would have changed the fortunes or anything like that, but I felt like that was disrespectful to Jacoby Brissett, who's had a decent NFL career, not a great one, but a decent one. Right. And then you go to Nick Chubb, who's had an excellent career. You go to Amari Cooper, who's had a great career. You go to this offensive line full of great offensive linemen. You go to Myles Garrett. You go to Denzel Ward. And my issue with the narrative about Baker, because I have no problem with Baker Mayfield himself. I have problems with people who try to paint these false narratives about his time in Cleveland. And the false narrative that I stand up against a lot of with this and the thing that I've taken a lot of flack for is I don't think the turnaround had as much to do. Like, did Baker have a part in that? Yeah, he played good in some games and he definitely had a part in it. But everybody makes it seem like it was Baker Mayfield himself. And when you look at the 2018 draft, he was drafted in the same draft as Nick Chubb and Denzel Ward, two players who are the best, one of the best players at the position. Baker was never considered that. At best, in 2020, you could say he was probably like the 8th best quarterback. But even then, since 2020, right, if we're saying Baker at his best was the 8th in 2020, you have to factor in that Justin Herbert came into the league, got much better. He eclipsed Baker Mayfield's 2020, even there. Lamar Jackson has always been ahead. But even when you go to somebody like a Joe Burrow, has massively eclipsed him. There's been guys who have gotten better. Mac Jones, who had similar seasons to that 2020 year that you could say would rank above it. So it pushes that back, and now you're like, hey, like realistically, that 2020 season that was 8th that year would probably be 12th this year. Is that enough? Is him at his peak enough? Not like And I think we get into this thing where any criticism of a player that somebody likes can be deemed as disrespect. I don't think it's disrespect to say that Baker's peak is probably the 12th best quarterback. And he's not somebody who you can build around, similar to a Matt Stafford, right? Where you can't really build around a Matt Stafford and get a championship. But if you have a great team and maybe Baker's more mature in advance in his career, doesn't make the same mistakes that he made early in Cleveland, then maybe he could be a guy who could eventually win a Super Bowl. But he's not the dude right now that you want to build around. That's just not the fact. That's just been proven over the last 4 years. There's too many ifs with Baker Mayfield, right? If everything's healthy, if the offensive line's good, if the running game's working, if Baker's all healthy. Whenever you have a conversation, even with somebody who is a Baker Mayfield diehard about this whole thing, it's always if.
Yes.
And if don't get the job done.
If the weather's great, if the receivers can run perfect routes and they got to get separation, and then you need to offer, you got to have 200 yards rushing a game. I'm like, what? You're not gonna get 200 yards a game.
Let's keep it real. We've never heard the Pittsburgh Steelers fans say if about Ben Roethlisberger. We've never heard Bengals fans talk about if. We heard them talk about if with Andy Dalton all the time. They don't say if with Joe Burrow. They say when, right? Like, it's the same thing with Tom Brady. Like, the great quarterbacks don't make you have to say if all the time. They're trading for a guy that they don't feel like they have to say if about. There's going to be some things that come up. We're going to see if he because again, he's had a lot of statistical success, Deshaun Watson. I haven't seen it translate to as much like wins and losses as you would like to see. But now he has the roster that he felt like he should have been built around. And the reason he wanted to get out of Houston was because he felt like they couldn't build a roster like they were building in Cleveland. So now he has all the tools at his disposal. And similar to Baker, if he comes out here and drops a mid for 3 years, we're going to want him out of town too, right? Like, it is not just going to be with Baker Mayfield. Like, if you come in here, like, the expectations, I think people also struggle with this. I don't care what the Browns did before 2018. I really don't care what they did before the season that starts, right? We're talking about the 2022 season. What happened before does not matter when it comes to the expectations for that season. And the fact of the matter is the expectations for the season have nothing to do with how pathetic this team was before 95. And if you operate as if the bar is whatever the garbage they put out before the 2018 season, then that's a way to keep yourself as a perennial joke in the NFL. If you're like, hey, we're better than 6-5, like, that's a joke. No real franchise operates like that. So the fact that people think that you should get credit, like the whole best quarterback since 99. Yeah, it's true. He is the best quarterback since 99. But, like, what does that mean? What does that mean? Like, you're better than Derek Anderson? That doesn't put you in the Ring of Fame. Like, you know what I mean? So it is what it is on that front, right? I know people want this to, because Baker has provided some nice moments and they want everything to be nice on the way out. I don't know. Maybe I'm just sullied. Maybe I've argued with too many Baker haters. Maybe I'm too cynical in this approach. But, you know, I just don't feel the energy and the need to do that, because ultimately we're talking about a guy who has disappointed expectations. I hope he has a better career going forward, but he's let us down a good amount of time. Had a good season. I'm willing to acknowledge that, but I'm not about to put a dude in the Ring of Fame like he Bernie Kosar, when he ain't done nothing that Bernie Kosar had ever did in his career. I'm sorry. I think the bar should be higher than that. And I don't care what team you're talking about.
I definitely think one of the things that you got to have is perspective. And a lot of people, you know, so I laugh and joke all the time. It's like, you know, I've been divorced once before, right? Mm-hmm. You know, like, some people pick the terrible people. They just pick bad people to marry, right? I you know, my first wife wasn't like a bottle of rose water, like that wasn't it. But here's the thing: it's like saying, you know what? Well, my first husband, you know, he was physically abusive, right? You're like, oh wow, you divorced him? Yep, I sure did, man. And then you say, oh, you're married now again? Yeah, my new husband, he's not physically abusive. He just curses at me, and he makes idle threats, and he's alcoholic. Well, I mean, that's still not healthy, bro. I mean, but he's the best husband I've had since 2002. Like, okay, well, that's still not the right home about, right? You're still in a bad relationship. The Browns have been bad because they're terrible. If you want to give people credit, for you want to crown him, crown him. If you want to say Baker is the best since 1999, they don't give out hardware, trophies, or contracts for that. And going into Pittsburgh and beating a bad Ben Roethlisberger with a half-shot arm and a bad offensive line and no running game, I get it. And they had 5 turnovers that game. The defense, and for me, and I don't want to make it about a Baker bash or bash fest, right? I will agree with the fact that it annoys me sometimes that they because he's the quarterback, they give him all of the credit for some turnaround. And I say, do you understand how many top 5 people they have at their position? Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, in my mind, are top 10 running backs. Amari Cooper is way better at receiver than Baker Mayfield is at quarterback. You got a top offensive line. You got almost a 1, 2, 3 defensive end. You got a corner who's a top 1, 2, 3, 4 corner. You got a bunch of stuff here. And all of those guys at the top of their food chain, and all those guys have made a lot of money in this league and got to a second or third contract. Baker has not done that. And we can't just say that it was him.
Yeah, and it's like, to me, it's like, okay, I understand the quarterback position is important, but to throw all of those dudes out the window like they're chopped liver because they're not going to play Baker Mayfield, who played the 27th QBR in the NFL last year, was 30th in PFF ranking out of 33 quarterbacks. Like, you're not going to tell me that that's going to be the reason they're not going to win a bunch of games when you have this much talent. I thought it was disrespectful to those guys. And I know everybody, we'll talk about week 1 a little bit. Everybody, they're talking to me about, oh man, Baker's going to be fired up. He's going to have this chip on his shoulder. And, I have my thoughts about that.
Listen, I'll tell you what, there's 2 things. We started this joint. We started off here rambling. I got to come back and I want to do week 1 because I've been hearing a lot of stuff in my ear with week 1. I want to do that blog. And we got to get to, because I think we started off trying to do the blog with that blog on this one. What the difference between what the Browns are or were with Baker Mayfield compared to what they will be, and what's some new wrinkles that you think they're going to throw in? And we kind of talked about that a little bit, too.
Well, and my whole thing to the chip on the shoulder, 1, we've seen what that chip on the shoulder has accomplished here in Cleveland, which is not very much. 2, we also, do you think Baker Mayfield's the only person that's upset about how bad the offense played last year? Do you think that the defense was not frustrated at all with the mediocrity that they were getting from the quarterback position last year? Do you think that they were not upset about the Odell thing, given that everybody on the defense kind of took Odell's side once he got released, and ain't none of those dudes on the defense, hey, 6, go get him out there in Carolina, like they were sending that for Odell, right? Remember, Odell left. They were like, go get him, Odell. The season was still going. He signed with another team, and they still was like, yo, kill him, Odell. You going to do it. Yeah. You going to show them, Odell. Still, during this season. Baker Mayfield, this thing happened in the offseason. I have not seen one defensive player be like, oh, man, 6, you're going to get it. Hey, show them. No, because they have as much as a chip on their shoulder about how last year went offensively as Baker Mayfield does. So I would just say, going into that game, it's not just the Carolina Panthers that will have a chip on their shoulder.
No,
it is
a lot of teams.
This defense has been waiting to show the general public what they believe to be the flaws that held them back last year, and what stopped them from achieving more. But again, I feel like we went Baker heavy on this. We went quarterback heavy on this whole thing. So I guess we'll just have to come back and talk about the rest of the team another day. Anything you want to throw in there real quick?
Check out Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show every single, what day is it? It's Monday through Friday, 11 to 1. Check that out. Obviously, the barber shop. I'm gonna see if I can broker this deal where Quincy's gonna come on. We're gonna see what he's gonna say. And then Locked On Browns podcast. Make sure you keep supporting Quincy, man. We'll be back. We're gonna be back very soon, man. I enjoyed it, man. These conversations seem like it's talking to an old friend. It ain't like talking to some podcaster somewhere over in New Mexico.
See, I like to give it all to the audience. Sometimes we come in here with the jokes. Sometimes we come in here with the hard X's and O's. Sometimes we come in here with the film breakdown. And sometimes We just got to have a conversation with the homie about this team and about the offseason. So that's what I tried to give y'all today. Hope y'all enjoy it. GBUSH is going to be back. So if you don't like GBUSH, sorry about that. By the way, might be on this show tomorrow. I don't know what time, but we'll see.
He's like, we gonna see, right? Tune in too. He gonna tweet it out. He'll tell you if he gonna come on, man.
Keep your ears out. Well, actually, I think this is going up Saturday. So by the time this goes up, see y'all getting behind the curtain. I would have already. So go back and check out if I was on the show, and then the link will be up if it was or did not happen. But that's it for today's show. Y'all have a great day. Have a good night.